Okay, so I'm going to show you how to put the hump in the beak part of the mask. So I've already traced out my patterns on a 6x9 piece of fabric. I use 6x9 fabrics for my pleated masks and 6x9 fabrics for my beak masks. So I've already traced out my fabrics. This was actually scraps that I put together that I'm going to sew. I'm going to pretend it's just folded. So I fold my fabric in the center, and then I trace it, and then I sew just this amount, and then I trim it, and I trim it right on top of the other fabric that I'm going to use, just so it's the exact same size. So I'm going to go ahead and do that for you. I'm only going to sew this portion, and that's what's going to give the beak part a little area in your nose to breathe a little bit. Back stitch, scooch it up a little bit, and then this one, since it wasn't folded, it needs to be sewn together. Do this, and I usually do about 20 pieces, just so I can be quicker about it. I actually have a big train of them here that I've been sewing this morning, but I'm going to put all of these aside for later. It's my homework, and I'm just going to do these two pieces so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, so put my template away since I don't need it. First part I do is I just trim the hump area, not too closely though, because I've trimmed too close and have cut it, so just be mindful of that. And I want to trim this area. Since I had to go all the way up that and down since it wasn't folded, I'm just going to go ahead and trim that. Okay, so this is the tricky part. I want my fabrics to match up as much as possible, and I have found that I'm not perfect, so usually there's always something that doesn't match up right, but if I trim them at the same time, they sew a lot better. So I'm just going to trim that, trim that. I'm going to get my elastic ready. These need to be 5.5 inches. My numbers are missing, but I know that that hump there is 5.5 inches. It's hard getting the elastic the exact same on each side, but it's close. This is the round elastic, and it's really soft. I find it softer on your ears. I found this after we made a couple thousand of them, but I'm just going to trim that a little bit more. Not too close. Okay, so when you're sewing, the pretty sides need to be together. Most of these fabrics doesn't really matter. Can't tell the difference, but this one's just a little bit brighter on this side, and of course, this is the beautiful pattern. So this is really important when you start sewing these together, is you want to be sure that the seam is matching. I'm just going to sew this first half. Stop, and then I'm going to slide this elastic on the top, stick it in there, and when you pull it out, it's going to be on the outside. And then you want to go about a half an inch, I guess, from the bottom. And just so it stays symmetrical. First, I'm going to make sure I've sewn it on both sides. Sometimes there'll be a little divot that I don't know about, and it doesn't catch on both sides. So now I'm going to do the other side. Pull it so it matches up. I'm actually going to do the back stitch up next. inch up. I say half an inch. For me, it's really just like a little bit below my sewing plate. Okay, so now I'm ready to sew the bottom, and when you sew the bottom, you gotta be sure to leave an opening so you can pull your mask out. Sure it's sewn. Yeah. Looks like it's sewn. And we'll pull it out. I like to keep a pencil nearby, or I actually have a Pampered Chef orange peel slicer that I use. Test my elastic, make sure it's in there nice and good. Then I just go through and poke the corners. Don't poke it too hard because you might make a hole in it. Doesn't have to be perfect. Just want to be sure that it's comfortable. Now this is kind of tricky. I like to pull this up and then pull it out. So, okay. So that looks pretty good. I'm going to fold this together. Sometimes it's perfect and sometimes it's not. And we are just going to sew. I'll start from one end, pull it tight, and go straight to the other end. Since this has got a seam in it, it's going to not be as perfect as if it were just a full piece of fabric. Keep my needle down, put it. Sometimes that elastic will want to get in your way. So I find the easiest way to sew this hump is just to push the hump towards me and make it as flat as possible. I really messed that up the first times I did it. And when you get to the hump in the middle, you just kind of lift your presser foot up where it's going to bunch there. And then sew straight down. Trim the little stitches or the little strings that are hanging out, and voila, we have a beak style mask. I'm sure there's another name for it. My friend calls it the Hannibal style, and you can either wear the bright teal side or you can wear the candy skull side. Just gonna bunch out a little bit so you can breathe.